Viewers write Lincoln Burrows off as the muscle, the blunt instrument who takes the hits while the brains do the work. That single misread misses the entire engine of Prison Break. Michael Scofield designed the escape, but Lincoln Burrows gave that escape a reason to exist. Michael sees a structure of walls, schedules, and locks. Lincoln experiences a system designed to crush human dignity. Michael calculates the impossible. Lincoln carries it. And from a trapped captive at Fox River, to an out-of-bounds negotiator in Panama, to a co-strategist helping dismantle the company, Lincoln's journey is not about becoming smarter than Michael. It is about evolving from a man reacting to chaos into a man capable of weaponizing his own resilience. Lincoln's nightmare begins long before the first tunnel is opened. It begins with a system that does not merely accuse him of killing Terrence Steadman. It attempts to erase his reality completely. The state does not approach Lincoln and ask him to explain what happened. It presents a complete story, backed by official evidence, official authority, and an execution date. In the eyes of the institution, the question is already settled. Lincoln is not just imprisoned. He is being told that his own memory, his own innocence, and his own version of events are worthless. That is the psychological warfare at the center of his story. The electric chair is the visible threat. The deeper threat is that Lincoln will eventually believe the chair represents the truth. If the system can convince him that nobody will listen, that every witness can be erased, and that the official story matters more than reality, then the conspiracy wins before the execution ever happens. Lincoln would not simply be dead. He would be reduced to the identity the system created for him. Michael refuses to let that happen. He studies the prison, the routines, the locks, and the weaknesses in the structure. He turns Fox River into a problem that can be solved. But the reason he does all of this is not architectural. It is personal. Michael is not escaping because the prison presents an interesting challenge. He is breaking into the prison because Lincoln's life has been swallowed by a lie. That is the first difference between the brothers. Michael sees the walls. Lincoln feels what those walls are meant to do. Michael can stand outside the system and analyze its design. Lincoln is already inside it, being processed by it, waiting for it to declare that his life is over. His position gives him less information, less freedom, and less control. But it also gives him something Michael cannot manufacture from the outside. Lincoln knows exactly what the plan is fighting for. That is why the muscle label is so incomplete. It describes the moments when Lincoln uses physical force, but it ignores the emotional function he performs. Michael builds a solution. Lincoln gives the solution weight. Michael can calculate a route through concrete and steel. Lincoln carries the fear, guilt, anger, and responsibility that make the route matter. The first stage of Lincoln's evolution is learning to act inside a plan he cannot fully see. Michael's escape depends on information being divided among different people. Michael knows the structure. Sucre understands the cell. Abruzzi controls access to resources. Other prisoners become useful for individual parts of the operation. No one outside Michael has the complete picture, and that includes Lincoln. This is important because Lincoln's position does not allow him the comfort of total understanding. He cannot stop the entire prison and demand a full presentation of the escape. He cannot inspect every detail of Michael's calculations. He cannot wait until every risk has been removed because the execution date keeps moving toward him. He has to trust the next step before he can see the final one. That kind of trust is not passive. It is an active decision made under pressure. Lincoln knows the plan can fail. He knows Michael can be wrong. He knows the people around them can betray them. But he also knows that refusing to act guarantees the system's preferred outcome. The prison has already given him one future. Michael is trying to create another. Lincoln's job is not to become Michael. It is to remain usable when Michael's strategy reaches the human beings inside the prison. A blueprint can identify a weakness in a wall. It cannot make a frightened person move toward that weakness at the right moment. It cannot absorb the consequences when a guard appears early or when a plan suddenly changes. Lincoln can. This is the first form of his situational intelligence. He does not need complete information to understand what the next responsibility demands. He knows when he must wait. He knows when he must move. He knows that asking for certainty while the opportunity is disappearing is not preparation. It is surrender disguised as caution. The common image of Lincoln is that he solves problems with force. But in Fox River, his first major contribution is not force. It is commitment. He commits to Michael's plan while the plan is still invisible. On a first watch, that can make Lincoln seem like the person being carried by the escape. On a rewatch, the relationship looks different. Michael has the technical knowledge, but Lincoln is the reason that knowledge becomes urgent. Without Lincoln, Michael's intelligence has no target. Without Lincoln's willingness to keep participating, the escape is only an elaborate theory. Michael designs the escape. Lincoln gives it a reason to exist. Even if Michael can create a path through Fox River, Lincoln still has to resist the psychological damage of being treated as a guilty man when he knows he is innocent. The frame-up surrounding Terrence Steadman is not designed only to put Lincoln in prison. It is designed to make resistance appear pointless. The evidence has been shaped against him. The people who could expose the truth are placed in danger. The institution continues functioning as if the conclusion is obvious. That is what makes the injustice so destructive. Lincoln is not simply facing an enemy who wants him dead. He is facing a structure powerful enough to make everyone else believe that his death is justified. In that environment, anger is inevitable. Lincoln is not a character who floats above his emotions. He gets furious. He reacts quickly. He makes choices that become more dangerous because he refuses to stay passive. But emotional discipline is not the same thing as calmness, and resilience is not the absence of anger. Lincoln's real achievement is that his anger does not become his entire identity. The system calls him a murderer. Lincoln does not allow the accusation to become his internal reality. The prison treats him as a threat. Lincoln does not decide that everyone around him deserves to be treated as an enemy. The company uses lies to isolate him. Lincoln continues trying to protect the people who are still connected to the truth. That is a far more difficult task than simply staying composed. Repression would mean pretending that the injustice does not hurt. Lincoln never truly does that. He knows exactly what has been taken from him. He knows that the state is moving toward killing him. He knows that his son, LJ, is being dragged into a conspiracy he did not create. Discipline means feeling the full weight of that reality and still deciding what to do with the next moment. Lincoln cannot make the system honest instantly. He cannot force the people responsible to confess. He cannot undo every lie by shouting the truth louder. But he can decide what kind of father he will be while LJ is watching him. He can pass on panic, or he can pass on direction. He can teach LJ that the situation is hopeless, or he can show him that being trapped does not mean every choice has been removed. That is what the conspiracy cannot completely take from him. It can control his location. It can control the evidence. It can control the official story. It can even threaten the people he loves. But it cannot fully determine what Lincoln chooses to protect. That choice becomes the central weapon used against him. Alexander Mahone understands that the fugitives are not only running from the law, they are running with emotional attachments that can be exploited. When Mahone uses LJ to reach Michael and Lincoln, he exposes how predictable Lincoln's loyalty can make him. Lincoln does not need to debate whether LJ matters. The decision has already been made. LJ is family. Michael is family. Once the threat reaches them, Lincoln's options narrow immediately. This is where loyalty becomes both strength and vulnerability. His enemies do not need to defeat his logic. They only need to threaten the people he has already placed above himself. They know that Lincoln will risk his freedom for LJ. They know that he will keep moving toward Michael even when doing so makes him easier to track. They know that he will accept danger rather than live with the knowledge that he abandoned someone who depended on him. That is the map his enemies use. But the map also explains why Michael trusts him. In a series filled with betrayal, Lincoln's priorities do not shift every time the situation changes. He may change tactics. He may lose his temper. He may choose the wrong method. But he does not casually decide that the people around him are disposable. That stability matters because Michael's plans require people who will remain committed after the plan becomes painful. Lincoln does not become loyal because loyalty is strategically convenient. He becomes loyal because he has already decided who counts as family. Once that decision is made, the crisis does not need to answer whether he should help them. The crisis only determines how much he is willing to sacrifice. That is why his loyalty can look irrational from the outside. A safer person would walk away. A more calculating person might accept that one loss is necessary to protect the larger group. Lincoln sees the decision differently. If the plan requires him to become the kind of person who abandons his family, then the plan has already taken too much from him. The weakness is obvious. His enemies know where to aim. The strength is even more important. Lincoln knows what he is defending. That clarity carries him into Panama, where his role begins to change. Fox River is a system Lincoln is trapped inside. Sona is a world where the usual system has broken down. Michael is inside the prison, while Lincoln is outside dealing with the company and Gretchen Morgan. LJ and Sarah are being used as leverage, and Michael is being forced into a new escape operation involving James Whistler. This changes the nature of Lincoln's responsibility. At Fox River, Lincoln is the person the plan is trying to reach. In Panama, he is one of the people keeping the plan alive from the outside. He no longer has the protection of a stable institution, even though the institution at Fox River was corrupt. Around Sona, authority is fragmented. The prison itself operates according to a harsher and less predictable logic. Lincoln cannot rely on procedure to protect the people he loves. He cannot assume that official power will arrive in time. He cannot simply wait for Michael to solve everything from inside the walls. He has to negotiate with people who understand leverage better than justice. Gretchen is dangerous because she understands that Lincoln's strength is connected to his attachments. By holding Sarah and LJ, the company does not need to defeat Lincoln physically. It only needs to create a choice where every refusal has a human cost. This is where Lincoln begins to operate outside the boundaries of the original escape mentality. He is not simply taking orders or waiting for an opening. He has to create pressure, protect information, judge the intentions of people around him, and understand what each negotiation is really about. His intelligence remains different from Michael's. Michael solves problems by studying systems. Lincoln solves problems by studying the people who control those systems. He reads tone, hesitation, fear, and confidence. He knows that a conversation has stopped being a negotiation when the other side has already decided that the threat is more valuable than the deal. He knows that physical intimidation is useless if the other person controls the hostage or the information. He knows that sometimes the strongest move is not attacking the threat, but refusing to reveal how much the threat has already changed his options. That is not the intelligence of a structural engineer. It is the intelligence of a man who has spent his life recognizing when a room is about to turn against him. In Panama, Lincoln's directness becomes more tactical. He is still capable of confrontation, but he is no longer confronting every problem simply because confrontation is familiar. He begins to understand that force is only useful when it changes the balance of power. If it does not, it is just a reaction that gives the other side more control. The environment forces him to become more patient without making him less decisive. That is a significant evolution. Lincoln does not become less loyal. He becomes more aware of what loyalty requires from him. Protecting LJ and Sarah is not only about running toward the danger. It is about keeping the larger operation alive while the company tries to force an emotional mistake. The pressure is still personal. The difference is that Lincoln now has to think beyond the immediate reaction. He is learning to turn resilience into leverage. By the time the story reaches the Scylla conflict, the evolution becomes even clearer. Lincoln is no longer only a captive trying to escape a sentence. He is no longer only an external negotiator trying to keep Michael alive inside Sona. He becomes part of an organized effort against the company itself. Michael remains the technical architect. He understands the structures, the systems, the hidden connections, and the precise risks of the operation. But Lincoln is no longer waiting for Michael to hand him a role. He is helping carry the mission forward. This is where the muscle label finally collapses. A muscle does not need to understand the objective. A muscle is sent toward a problem and told to remove it. Lincoln has become something more complicated. He understands what the operation is trying to achieve, what the company is willing to do to stop it, and what personal risks the team is accepting in order to keep moving. He still uses physical force. He still confronts threats directly, but the force is now part of a broader judgment. He is not simply reacting to whoever is closest. He is deciding which threat matters, which alliance can be trusted, and what the mission can afford to lose. When a company agent attacks Lincoln and he is arrested, the moment reflects the danger of this new position. He is fighting an organization that has the power to make him look like the criminal again. The law does not automatically recognize his cause as legitimate. His past still follows him. The same system that once framed him can still use procedure against him, but Lincoln is not the same man who entered Fox River. At Fox River, the system controls the story and Lincoln struggles to survive inside it. In the Scylla conflict, he understands that the system itself is part of the battlefield. An arrest is not merely an obstacle. A public accusation is not merely an insult. Every official action may be connected to a larger attempt to isolate the team, divide the mission, or force another compromise. He has learned to think in terms of pressure. That is the tactical evolution Michael cannot give him directly. Michael can teach Lincoln the structure of a plan, but the outside world teaches Lincoln what happens when the plan meets institutions, hostages, betrayals, and people who are willing to turn law into a weapon. Fox River teaches him how to survive inside a system. Panama teaches him how to operate without one. The fight against the company teaches him how to help dismantle the system itself. The progression is not from unintelligent to intelligent. It is from controlled reaction to deliberate pressure. Lincoln begins the series as a man whose reality has been taken from him. He is told that he is guilty, that his innocence is irrelevant, and that his execution is simply the natural conclusion of the case. Michael gives him a way to resist, but Lincoln gives that resistance emotional force. He does not escape because he wants a more comfortable life. He escapes because the system has threatened everyone connected to him, and because accepting the official story would mean surrendering the truth. That is why his resilience feels earned rather than superhuman. Lincoln breaks emotionally. He gets angry. He becomes predictable. He allows enemies to manipulate him through his family. He rushes into situations where a more patient person might have waited. He is not a perfect strategist, but perfection is not his role. His role is to remain human in a story where every organization tries to turn people into pieces on a board. Michael sees the board. Lincoln carries the pieces. Michael calculates the impossible. Lincoln absorbs the cost. Michael can create a route through a structure, but Lincoln is the one who keeps the route connected to a human purpose after the structure changes. That is why his loyalty is so powerful and so dangerous. It gives him a direction no enemy can completely remove, but it also tells those enemies where to apply pressure. Mahone can use LJ. Gretchen can use Sarah and LJ. The company can threaten the people Lincoln refuses to abandon. They can manipulate his loyalty. They cannot fully erase it. And that is the difference between control and influence. Lincoln's enemies can force him into difficult choices, but they cannot make those choices meaningless. Every time they threaten his family, they confirm the very values they are trying to exploit. They remind Lincoln why he is still fighting. His resilience is not the ability to ignore pressure. It is the ability to turn pressure into a decision. Sometimes that decision is to trust Michael without seeing the full plan. Sometimes it is to protect LJ even when doing so exposes him. Sometimes it is to negotiate with people who do not respect the rules he believes in. Sometimes it is to stand beside the team against an organization powerful enough to make the law itself look guilty. The method changes. The priority remains. That is Lincoln's real character arc. He begins as a captive reacting to chaos. He becomes an external operator creating leverage inside chaos. He ends as a co-strategist capable of helping direct the fight against the people who created the chaos in the first place. He does not become Michael. He becomes the person Michael's strategy was always missing. Michael Scofield designed the escape, but Lincoln Burrows gave that escape a reason to exist. Michael understood how to get through the walls. Lincoln understood what would be lost if nobody tried. Michael built the plan around the prison. Lincoln kept the plan anchored to family, truth, and responsibility. That is why Lincoln was never just the muscle. He was the emotional anchor that kept the mission human, the operational anchor that kept it moving, and eventually the tactical partner who learned how to carry the fight beyond the prison walls. The blueprint made the breakout possible. The backbone made it survive. And without both, Fox River never gets outsmarted.